Once upon a time, in the kingdom of Tambara lived a brave girl named Amina. Born in a small village on the outskirts of Tambara, her father was a skilled blacksmith, and her mother was a healer known for her knowledge of herbs and remedies. From a young age, Amina displayed a keen intellect and a compassionate heart. Amina was an only child and was doted on by her parents. She spent her childhood learning from both her parents. She inherited her father's strength and precision, often helping him in the forge, and her mother's wisdom and gentleness, assisting in treating the sick and wounded. Her parents instilled in her the values of hard work, empathy, and resilience. When Amina was just 12 years old, her village suffered a severe flooding, killing many and leaving several others homeless. Her father tried to save her and her mother, but in the end, both parents perished. Her father managed to get Amina onto the rescue boat before he was swept away by the current. Left alone, Amina, despite her loss, helped attend to the weak and the wounded. After peace was restored, the survivors were relocated. Amina was invited into the home of Zamora, one of the nurses who cared for the wounded during the flood. Amina lived with nurse Zamora for many years. Zamora, a widow without children, and Amina, an orphan, who needs a home and a guardian, were perfect for each other. Though Zamora didn't have money, she did her best to send Amina to school. Amina loved to read and spent hours in the village's small library, absorbing stories and knowledge from distant lands. After completing her secondary education, she studied nursing, following in Zamora's footsteps, and became an excellent nurse. On the other side of the kingdom lived Zuri, a young, beautiful and talented woman from a prominent family in the capital city of Tambara. Zuri's father was a respected advisor to the king, and she had been raised in an environment of privilege and education. Known for her beauty and grace, Zuri had been trained in diplomacy and the arts from a young age. Zuri's early life was marked by a drive for education. She learned multiple languages, studied music and dance, and was well versed in the politics and history of the kingdom. Zuri excelled in every challenge she undertook, driven by a competitive spirit and determination to succeed. Despite her privileged upbringing, Zuri was not arrogant. She understood the importance of duty and service, often using her knowledge and skills to help those less fortunate. Once, Zuri and Amina had faced each other in a science quiz, each representing their schools in a team of 3 students. The competition was fierce, and they reached a draw. To break the tie, Zuri and Amina were chosen to answer a series of tie-breaking questions. Each had to answer 5 questions. The first person to answer a question correctly will be declared the winner. A coin was tossed, Zuri got heads, and Amina got tails. Both girls missed the first 3 questions. However, Zuri answered the 4th question correctly, securing the victory for her school. Unknown to them, this would not be their last encounter. They would meet again, competing under very different circumstances. The kingdom of Tambara was ruled by King Makena. King Makena had a queen named Naya. Naya beauty and kindness were legendary. The king was very much in love with her, but Queen Naya got ill and no remedy was found for her ailment. She eventually passed away and the entire kingdom mourned her deeply, leaving King Makena heartbroken and the kingdom without a queen. In his grief, King Makena withdrew from public life for many months. He couldn't cope with the loss of his beloved wife, and he was lonely and sad. Eventually, his advisors convinced him that he needed a new wife and companion, and the kingdom needed a new queen, someone who could help smile again and bring joy back to the royal court. Reluctantly, King Makena agreed to find a new bride, but he believed he could never love again. He agreed to a new wife out of duty to his kingdom. He was convinced he could never love another woman like he loved his late wife, Naya. Word spread across Tambara that King Makena was seeking a queen and a contest would be held to choose the next queen. Eligible young ladies from across the kingdom were encouraged to sign up for the contest. Zamora wanted Amina to participate, but Amina rejected the idea, saying she wouldn't subject herself to competing with other women to be queen. She believed in love and hoped that one day she would meet a man who loved her and whom she would equally love. However, Zamora didn't heed her protests. She took matters into her own hands and enrolled Amina in the contest. When Amina found out what Zamora had done, she was very upset and angry with her. But Zamora was able to convince her, and Amina, believing she didn't stand a chance against the many outstanding women in the kingdom, carried on with her life. Amina was surprised when she received the royal invitation from the palace as one of the 20 most beautiful and accomplished damsels picked from the many who registered for the contest. The 20 damsels were then invited to the royal palace and Amina came face to face with the other 19 contestants. Among them was Zuri. Amina wasn't surprised to see her. She kind of expected it, knowing Zuri wasn't just beautiful, she was one of the most accomplished damsels in the kingdom. Each of the 19 damsels were beautiful and accomplished in their own way and they all hoped to become the new queen, but Amina was indifferent. She believed she didn't stand a chance. To ensure that the future queen was not only beautiful but also brilliant, wise, brave, and compassionate, the king's men devised a series of tests. A renowned fashion designer was invited to kit the girls and for the first few days, they were fitting and trying on different outfits. Before long the competition commenced and they were divided into groups of 5. The first test was one of intellect. The damsels were brought to the palace library, a grand hall filled with ancient scrolls and books. They were given a complex riddle to solve, one that required both intelligence and insight into the history and culture of Tambara. Amina was excited. She loved reading and she had read all the available books on the history of Tambara. One particular riddle made Amina stand out, the riddle of the owl. In the ancient land where Tambara stands, a tale is woven through time's sands. A king once ruled with wisdom so grand, in a palace where knowledge expands. By moon's soft glow, a secret was spun. In the library halls where scholars run, find the creature that's silent and wise, with feathers of gold and piercing eyes. In its name, the history resides, a blend of cultures where it hides. What am I? The answer is an owl, and only Amina knows the answer to the riddle. This riddle requires the damsels to think about a creature known for its wisdom, owl, which ties into the cultural symbolism and history of Tambara. Many of the damsels struggled and at the end, one group was dropped, leaving 15 damsels left. The second test was of bravery. The 15 remaining damsels were taken to a dense forest on the edge of the kingdom. There, they were tasked with retrieving a rare flower that only bloomed at night. The forest was known to be inhabited by animals and treacherous paths. Only those who demonstrated courage and resourcefulness could find the flower and return safely. Some of the girls were too afraid to enter the forest and dropped out of the competition. In the end, only 10 of them ventured into the forest. Despite their fear, they decided to work together as a team. Zuri, a natural leader, took charge of the team, providing guidance and motivating those who were struggling. Amina couldn't help but feel envious of Zuri's courage and tenacity. Even though they had a guide with them, the eerie feeling of the forest was scary enough and the terrain was hazardous, but for Amina, it was nothing new. Thanks to their joint effort, all 10 girls made it to the next stage. Next came the test of compassion. The damsels were brought to a village that had recently suffered from a severe drought. They were given limited resources and were asked to help the villagers as best as they could. This test revealed their ability to empathize and provide aid. For Amina, it took her back to when her village was flooded and she lost her parents. Because of her experience in the past, she could relate to the villagers and offer comfort. She seems to know just what to say to put a smile on their faces. Also, her experience helping out during the food time came in handy as she worked quickly and tirelessly to help the families. This made her stand out. She was able to showcase her strength in this area. From this trial, 5 damsels showed genuine kindness and ingenuity in alleviating the villagers' plight. The fourth test was one of endurance and strength. The remaining 5 damsels were led to the great river Tambi, which flowed through the heart of the kingdom. They were tasked with crossing the river and bringing back water from its deepest part. The river was wide and had a strong current, testing their physical strength and determination. The 5 girls entered the river and carefully made their way across, hindered by the powerful current. As usual, Zuri led the way and reached the middle of the river first. Amina was the last to arrive at the middle of the river. By the time she got there, Zuri and another contestant were already on their way back. Amina fetched the water, and as she tried to make her way back, the girl in front of her lost her footing and was being swept away by the current. Without thinking about her own safety, Amina quickly dropped her jug and swam after the girl, grabbing her by the leg. The current was strong, and both were being swept away. Amina struggled but held on tightly to the girl's leg. Suddenly, she felt a strong hand lift her, and saw another rescuer lift the girl. The rescue team had arrived, and they quickly swam to the riverbank. Amina and the other girl were shaken and were quickly attended to by medics. Since only 3 people were to qualify for the next and final stage, Amina had already resigned herself to the fact that she and the other girl would be going home. However, she was surprised when she was summoned by the chief advisor. The advisor informed her that they were impressed by her bravery, noting that without thinking of herself, she had stepped in to help. Such selflessness was exactly the kind of quality they were looking for in their future queen. Amina was surprised but also pleased to still be in the competition. Her joy was not just about the possibility of becoming queen, but also because she hated the idea of losing to Zuri again. Thus, instead of 3 damsels, 4, including Amina, successfully made it to the final stage. Finally, the last test was of heart and spirit. The 4 finalists were invited to a banquet with King McKenna. The grand hall of the royal palace was adorned with the finest decorations for the evening's banquet. Golden tapestries hung from the walls, and the long dining table was set with the finest china and sparkling crystal. King McKenna, dressed in his regal robes, awaited the arrival of the 4 finalists, Amina, Zuri, Nia, and Kaysai. Each had proven their worth in the trials, and tonight's banquet would be a final test of their grace, character, and intentions. As the finalists entered the hall, they were greeted by the king and took their seats around the table. The banquet began with lively conversation, laughter, and a feast of the kingdom's finest dishes. King McKenna engaged each of the damsels in thoughtful conversation, seeking to understand their perspectives and aspirations. Amina spoke of her dreams of improving the lives of the common people, drawing on her experiences in her village. Zuri discussed her vision for strengthening diplomatic ties with neighboring kingdoms. Nia, known for her artistic talents, shared her ideas for promoting cultural enrichment throughout Tambara. Kaysai, the youngest of the finalists, talked about her passion for education and her hopes to establish schools across the kingdom. As the evening progressed, it became clear that one of the finalists, Kaysai, had ulterior motives. She had been eyeing the king with a sly smile, and as the servants cleared the main course, she leaned closer to King McKenna, her hand subtly brushing his arm.
Your Majesty,
Kaysai said softly, her voice dripping with seduction.
I have heard many stories of your wisdom and strength. I believe that together, we could create a powerful legacy. Perhaps we could discuss this more intimately.
The room grew tense as the other finalists exchanged uneasy glances. King McKenna, however, remained composed. He gently but firmly moved Kaysai's hand away and addressed her with patience.
Kaysai,
He began, his voice calm and measured.
The role of a queen is not just to stand beside the king but to serve the people with integrity and honor. A true queen must have a pure heart and noble intentions. I appreciate your admiration, but this is not the way to earn my respect or the throne.
Kaysai's face flushed with embarrassment, and she quickly withdrew her hand. The other finalists looked on, impressed by the king's patience and tolerance. The banquet continued, but the atmosphere had changed. King McKenna, ever the gracious host, ensured that the conversation returned to lighter topics, allowing the finalists to showcase their true selves. As the evening drew to a close, he could sense that Amina would rather not be there. She seemed to relish the food more than the presence of the king. The king then stood to deliver his verdict.
Ladies,
King McKenna began.
each of you has shown remarkable qualities throughout these trials. You have demonstrated intelligence, bravery, compassion, and strength. However, the qualities of a true queen go beyond these trials.
He paused, looking at each of the finalists in turn.
Kaysai, you are young and passionate, but you must learn that true leadership requires more than ambition. Nia, your creativity is a gift, and I hope you continue to inspire Tambara with your art. Zuri, your wisdom and grace are invaluable, and I know you will continue to serve our kingdom with distinction. Amina, I see your compassion for our people and empathy for the needy even though you would rather not be here.
Amina bent her head in embarrassment.
Though each of you has demonstrated qualities that are admirable and essential for a queen. However, as I reflect on everything I've observed and learned, I find myself unable to make a final choice tonight.
He paused, looking at the 4 finalists.
There are 2 damsels who have stood out significantly, showing not only their capabilities but also their deep commitment to our kingdom's future. These 2 are Amina and Zuri. Both have impressed me with their wisdom, strength, and vision for Tambara. Yet, I feel I need to know more about them before making such an important decision.
The damsels reacted in different ways, but the king continued with a gentle smile.
Amina, Zuri, I would like to invite you to spend more time at the palace, to work alongside me and the council, to share more of your ideas and plans for Tambara. This will allow me to understand your hearts and minds better, and to see how you envision our shared future. Over the next few weeks, you will both participate in various royal duties, meet with our advisors, and engage with the people of Tambara.
Amina and Zuri exchanged glances, both honored and determined. They stood and bowed to the king, Zuri's expression showing her readiness to accept this new challenge, but the same could not be said for Amina. The king looked at her and smiled. He intended to get behind her brain and see what was going on there. For the first time in a long time, the king felt some excitement. He couldn't wait to discover what made Amina nonchalant about becoming his queen. To Nia and Kaysai. King McKenna continued, turning to the other 2 finalists.
Your talents and passions are invaluable to our kingdom. I encourage you to continue your great work and know that you have my deepest respect and gratitude. Tambara is fortunate to have you among its people.
Nia and Kaysai nodded gracefully, accepting the king's words with dignity. Over the next few weeks, Amina and Zuri immersed themselves in the life of the palace. They attended council meetings, participated in charitable work, and engaged with the citizens of Tambara. They showcased their leadership styles and values through their actions and decisions. Amina's approach was grounded and empathetic, drawing from her experiences in her village. She focused on practical solutions to improve the lives of the common people, often visiting the local markets and farms to speak directly with the citizens. Her humility and hands-on attitude won her many admirers. Zuri, on the other hand, demonstrated her diplomatic acumen and strategic thinking. She met with foreign dignitaries, discussing potential alliances and trade agreements. Her eloquence and poise impressed the palace advisors, who saw in her a queen capable of navigating the complex politics of the region. King McKenna observed both women closely, noting their strengths and how they interacted with those around them. He saw how Amina's compassion and relatability brought comfort and unity among the people, and how Zuri's intelligence and diplomacy promised stability and growth for the kingdom. The sun rose over the kingdom of Tambara, casting a golden glow over the palace gardens. It was the day King McKenna had invited Amina to spend time with him. He had spent the previous day with Zuri, and now it was Amina's turn. Her heart fluttered with a mix of excitement and nervousness. She had grown to like the king, who was an outstanding person, and she was looking forward to spending time with him. Amina couldn't pinpoint exactly when it had happened, but she realized she was no longer indifferent about being in the contest. She wanted to win, not just because she wanted to be queen, but because of the remarkable person she had discovered King McKenna to be. Amina had fallen for the king, but she is yet to realize it. King McKenna greeted her at the entrance, his smile warm and genuine.
Good morning, Amina. I hope you're ready for a day of adventure and discovery.
Good morning, Your Majesty. I look forward to it.
Amina returned his smile, feeling a sense of calm wash over her. They began their day with a tour of the palace grounds. King McKenna showed Amina the royal gardens, filled with exotic flowers and ancient trees. As they walked, he shared stories about the history of Tambara and his vision for its future. Amina listened intently, her admiration for the king growing with each passing moment. Their next stop was the palace library, a vast room filled with countless books and scrolls.
It's beautiful. I can see why you love it here.
This is one of my favorite places.
King McKenna said, his eyes lighting up.
I often come here to read and find inspiration.
Amina ran her fingers along the spines of the books, feeling a deep sense of connection. They spent the morning reading together, sharing their favorite passages and discussing their meanings. Amina was struck by the king's intellect and his thoughtful perspectives. She found herself drawn to his passion for knowledge and his desire to make a difference in the world. As noon approached, they moved through the hall on their way to share a picnic. While walking along the passage, Amina sighted the royal amulet of Tambara, and rushed to look at it. Lifting it, she admired it. The king told the history behind the amulet, after which they continued on their way. The palace staff had prepared a picnic spot for them in the beautiful garden, and they had a lovely time filled with laughter. King McKenna showed a playful side, making Amina laugh with his witty remarks and charming smile. The conversation flowed easily, and Amina felt a growing connection with the king. The king asked about her early life, and he was able to understand why all the luxury around her means nothing, and her genuine feeling for people and the need to help the needy. In the afternoon, they visited a nearby village. King McKenna introduced Amina to the villagers, who welcomed her with open arms. They spent hours listening to the villagers' stories and concerns, offering solutions and support. Amina was moved by the king's empathy and his ability to connect with people from all walks of life. As the sun began to set, they returned to the palace and headed to the rooftop terrace where they had dinner. The sky was painted in hues of orange and pink, and the air was filled with the sounds of evening birds. King McKenna and Amina after their dinner stood side by side, taking in the breathtaking view.
This has been a wonderful day.
It has. I've enjoyed every moment with you, Amina, and I'm glad you have changed your disposition about being in the palace. You have a kind heart and a brilliant mind. I'm grateful for your presence in my life.
Amina felt a surge of emotion, her feelings for the king blossoming into something deeper.
Your Majesty, spending this day with you has been a revelation. I've seen your strength, your wisdom, and your compassion. I'm grateful for the opportunity.
King McKenna took her hand, his touch gentle and reassuring.
Amina, I have a question for you. If I choose you at the end of the day, will you stand by my side, not just as my queen, but as my partner in life?
Amina hesitated, then tears welled up in Amina's eyes.
I have thoroughly enjoyed myself and enjoyed every moment I spent with you, but I don't think I'm the next queen of Tambara. I think that Suri will make a better queen than me. I'm sorry, Your Majesty.
You have nothing to be sorry for. I appreciate your honesty. Thank you for spending the day with me. It has been quite an experience.
That night, as the king rests in his chambers, he reflects on both women. It was a difficult choice for him, not that he was in love with any of them. He had made sure to guide his heart, but they were both outstanding women, and for Zuri, her allure pulled him, while Amina, there was a mystery about her. He noticed that while Zuri might be a good queen, she seemed to lack the warmth that Amina had. But Amina has made it clear she doesn't want to be queen, instead she has pitched for Zuri. He remembered asking Zuri the same question. Her answer was a firm yes. He signed he would miss Amina, he thought. The palace buzzed with excitement and anticipation as the day of King Makenna's decision drew near. Amina and Zuri had both demonstrated their exceptional qualities, and the kingdom eagerly awaited the announcement of the new queen. However, the night before the decision, a shocking discovery was made. An ancient and priceless artifact, the royal amulet of Tambara, had been found in Amina's chambers. The amulet, a symbol of the kingdom's heritage and power, was missing, causing great concern among the royal advisors. Guards swiftly escorted Amina to the Great Hall, where King Makenna and his council awaited. The king's face was a mask of disappointment and confusion as he looked at Amina, who stood with a bewildered and distressed expression.
Amina,
King Makenna said gravely.
This amulet is a sacred symbol of our kingdom, and theft is a serious offense. How did it come to be in your possession?
Your Majesty, I swear I did not take it. I have no idea how it ended up in my chambers. I would never dishonor the kingdom in such a way.
The advisors murmured among themselves, skeptical and uncertain. Despite her earnest pleas, the evidence against Amina seemed overwhelming. King Makenna, torn between his trust in her and the undeniable facts, felt he had no choice.
I am deeply sorry, Amina,
he said with a heavy heart.
Until we can ascertain the truth, you must return to your village. The trust of the people in their queen must be absolute, and this matter casts a shadow too great to ignore.
With tears in her eyes, Amina bowed and left the palace, her heart breaking with each step. The kingdom was abuzz with the news, and sympathy for Amina's plight mixed with confusion and suspicion. As the moon cast its silvery light through the tall windows of his chamber, King Makenna, alone in his chambers, his mind troubled and his heart heavy. The accusation against Amina had shaken him deeply. The image of the royal amulet in her possession replayed in his mind, but something about the situation didn't sit right with him. He walked to the window, gazing out at the sleeping kingdom.
Amina has always been honest and true,
he murmured.
Why would she risk everything for an artifact? There must be something more to this.
The king's thoughts wandered back to Amina's sincere denial and her tearful departure from the palace. He remembered her dedication to the trials, her compassion for the people, and her unwavering integrity. Deep in his heart, he felt a gnawing doubt about her guilt. As Amina arrived in her village that night, her aunt Zamora embraced her, and they both wept bitterly. Zamora knew Amina had been wrongly accused. Amina had lived with her for many years and had never taken what did not belong to her. As Amina sobbed, repeatedly saying,
I didn't do it, someone set me up.
Zamora's heart ached deeply. They were humble people with no one to fight for them.
Don't worry, my dear child.
Zamora whispered soothingly.
The Almighty will fight for us.
The next morning, King Makenna woke with a renewed determination to uncover the truth. As he dressed, his mind raced with possibilities. He decided to start his day by speaking with his most trusted advisors and investigating further. Just as he was about to leave his chambers, there was a knock on the door.
Enter,
the king called. One of the palace men, a loyal servant named Badu, stepped inside, looking uneasy. Your Majesty, may I have a moment of your time? He asked, bowing respectfully.
Of course, Badu. What is it?
King Makenna replied, gesturing for him to speak. Badu glanced around nervously before stepping closer. Your Majesty, I have come to share something of great importance. Last night, I overheard a conversation between two individuals in the palace garden. It was Zuri's father, Lord Kofil, and one of your advisors, Chief Abesai. They were discussing how they had framed Amina for the theft of the royal amulet. King McKenna's eyes widened in shock and anger.
What did you hear, Badu? Tell me everything.
Badu took a deep breath and recounted the conversation. Lord Kofil and Chief Abesai were gloating about their plan. Zuri's father didn't want to take any chances and wanted to eliminate Amina as a competitor for Zuri. They stole the amulet and planted it in Amina's chambers, knowing that such an accusation would ruin her chances. The king's face darkened with fury.
How could they commit such a treacherous act against an innocent woman and the kingdom? This is a grave betrayal.
Indeed, Your Majesty. I felt it was my duty to inform you. Amina has been wronged, and justice must be served. King McKenna's resolve hardened.
Thank you, Badu, for your loyalty and courage in bringing this to my attention. I will handle this matter personally.
Without delay, King McKenna summoned his council, including Lord Kafil and Chief Abesai, to the Great Hall. The tension in the room was palpable as they assembled, unaware of the storm about to be unleashed. King McKenna addressed the assembly with a commanding presence.
I have received information that has led me to question the recent accusations against Amina. Before we proceed, I must warn you all that the consequences of deceit will be severe.
He turned his piercing gaze toward Lord Kafil and Chief Abesai.
Badu, step forward and repeat what you heard last night.
Badu did as instructed, recounting the conversation with clarity and precision. Lord Kafil and Chief Abesai grew pale as he spoke, their attempts to mask their guilt failing miserably. King McKenna's voice was cold and unforgiving as he confronted them.
Lord Kafil, Chief Abesai, do you deny these accusations?
Lord Kafil stammered.
Your Majesty, this is a misunderstanding. Surely Badu is mistaken.
But Chief Abesai, realizing the futility of denial, hung his head.
It is true, Your Majesty. We conspired to frame Amina to ensure Zuri's path to the throne.
The room erupted in gasps and murmurs. King McKenna silenced them with a raised hand.
Such betrayal cannot be tolerated. Guards, take Lord Kafil and Chief Abesai into custody. They will be tried for their crimes.
As the guards escorted the guilty men away, King McKenna turned to his council.
Let this be a lesson to all. Justice and integrity must prevail above all else. Amina's name will be cleared, and she will be reinstated with full honor.
The king summoned Zuri and informed her that she had been disqualified due to her father's actions. Ever gracious, Zuri apologized for her father's behavior and insisted she had no part in his scheme. The king was sorry to see her leave but knew what he wanted. Recognizing Zuri's qualifications, passion, and dedication to the kingdom, he decided to appoint her as an ambassador. Zuri was happy and thanked the king profusely. The king then made his way to Amina's village, determined to bring her back. When he arrived, he found her helping with the village's daily tasks, her face still marked by the sorrow of recent events.
Amina,
he called, his voice gentle yet filled with authority. Amina turned, her eyes widening in surprise and hope.
Your Majesty?
King McKenna approached her, taking her hands in his.
Amina, I owe you an apology. You have been wrongly accused. The true culprits have been exposed, and your name has been cleared. You have shown incredible strength and integrity in the face of grave injustice. The kingdom needs a queen like you, one who embodies the virtues of honesty, courage, and compassion.
He took her hand and addressed the assembled guests.
People of Tambara, let it be known that Amina is our true queen. Let us celebrate her and the future of our great kingdom. Amina, I ask you to return to the palace, where you belong.
Tears of relief filled Amina's eyes as she nodded.
Thank you, Your Majesty.
But
No, but I have fallen in love with you. After all I have been through, you can't deny your king happiness. You also can't deny the kingdom the opportunity to have a queen like you. Please, say yes.
yes,
Amina responded. Her Aunt Zamora screamed for joy and hugged Amina, who would have thought that Amina's story could have a happy ending from the slum to the palace. As they traveled back to the palace, King McKenna felt a deep sense of peace. He didn't realize he had fallen in love with Amina until he saw her again. He had seen the strength and virtue of Amina's character, and he knew that together, they would lead Tambara with wisdom and compassion. When they arrived, the palace people welcomed Amina with cheers and applause. King McKenna addressed the crowd, declaring her innocence and honoring her resilience.
Amina has shown us all the true meaning of integrity and courage. Let us celebrate her return and look forward to a future where justice and peace guide our path.
As the crowd rejoiced, Amina and King McKenna shared a knowing smile, their bond stronger than ever. They knew that their journey together was just beginning, and with their hearts aligned, they would lead Tambara into a new era of peace and prosperity.